Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Today's daf is daf Samech Ches in Baba Basra. Says the Mishnah. Amochas are we talk about selling a house, selling a courtyard, selling a olive press, selling a bathhouse. We've been talking about all of these things. Now we're talking about selling a whole city. If you own a whole city, some people are wealthy, own a whole city. So Hamokar say if you sell a city, Mocher Batim Bar Shichmas. We did these things were excluded before, like the Bar Shichmas, meaning the pits, the ditches, and the cave. But if you sell a whole city, that's included. Everything in the city. I mean, that's part of it. Bar Shichamos, right? Mechatzos, bathhouses, shovchos, bird cages, bird houses, Beis Abadim, even the olive presses. That's part of the city. Beis Shlach in the fields. Beis Shlach normally means a field that has to be irrigated. Here means all fields. Everything in the city. Avalos matam, but not movables. Sell the whole city, but maybe you'd like to take a suitcase with you as you you sell your whole city. You're moving to another city. You'd like to take your movables with you, your towels, tefillin, your pen, your wallet, things like that. Let's say he said, I'm selling the house, selling you the city, and everything is in it. Even if they're animals and slaves, they're all sold. Now, the Gemara is going to ask an interesting question. What do you mean, afilu hayuba behema bavadim? What does that mean? In general, remember something. Avadim kananim have a chalai karka. You could buy it with keser shtar chazaka. You could buy you buy evid like you buy karka. You could get metalflin agav the karka too. So what do you mean over here? And metalflin, even they isn't avadim like karka? So what do you mean that the avadim? The answer is here we're talking about in general. We talk about selling something, buying and commerce. Yes, avadim have halacha like karka, but here we're talking about what was your intent. Remember, all these discussions is one of the things weren't clear. They didn't have a today the lawyers would say specifically what's included, what's not included. I'm not selling you the car, the truck, the movables, not selling. You would say some, but if it doesn't say that, if you just say stam, again, you sell the city stam. So what does that include? So you know what? Stam does not include movables, even animals, and even slaves, even though slaves have halacha like karka. So you think selling the city, the slaves should go with it. Not when it comes to intention. When it comes to intention, I'm saying who's gonna make my lunch if I don't have the slaves with me? You know what I mean? I'm selling you the city, but I have to take the slaves. Who's gonna work for me? So here he says afilu hayuba behema avadim. So the question then is, why say afilu? If you say that behema avadim have halacha like metalflin when it comes to a person's intention when he's selling the city, so why does it say afilu? Just say all metalflin. But we'll see the Gemara will talk about this. If you say everything in the city, then even animals and slaves, everything is sold, including the metalflin. If you sell the city, you also sell with it the santer. Gemara is going to debate what is santer. Santer in modern Hebrew is chin, right? But that's not what it means in the Gemara. Okay, in modern Hebrew it means the chin. I think you have the Gemara also like that. But here we'll see. You need to do it first. Pardon?
JCC, that's center.
The center, center. That's right. That's probably how they write center also in the transliterated. Correct. So we'll see. The Gemara is going to debate what is santa. That's going to be a whole issue. Amalei Rabacha, Braid Rabbi Ravashi. Shmamina Avadik Matatul Dami. L'chora, you see over here that avadim, even though we're not debating when it comes to kinyanim, what that is. Now the Gemara is going to ask later on, is like metalflin is like karka. So, in other words, what is the lashon b'nei adam when people call slaves metalflin, movables, or do they call it like non-movables? Rashbam says about 7-8 lines into the wide lines in Rashbam. Then Raisa Bari kamakar them like those kesef shtar chazaka keretan yishum diskish like kos tachsibis nachaltam asam tzachasam lebnechem achreichem. So certainly avadim kananim have a halacha like karka when it comes to kinyanim. But the question over here is, what did he mean when I say I'm selling the city? And I'm not selling the movables. Stam means not movables. What about slaves and animals? That's going to be so. That's the question over here. So l'chora, the fact that you say over here that it's not included, unless you say everything in it. So l'chora shmamina, but it's like metalflin dami, dika mekarka dami. If it's like karka, then it's not going to let it be sold together with the city. I'm selling the city, the fields, the olive presses, the bird cages, pits, ditches, everything is included. Well, if an eved is like karka, then it should be sold with the city too. But elamai, says the Gemara in the first of the white lines of the Gemara. Elamai, after so it's eved metalfami. So my afilu. If it's like Dapim, why do you say afilu? If it's metalfan, just say all metalfan, including avodim and behemos. Elamai, what do you have to say? Shiny be metalfan, metalfan. The answer is there's metalfan which is movable, there's metalfan which is not movable, right? So there is different kinds of metalfan. Some is metalfan is movable, some is not. So afilu time you could say that was like karka dummy, but shiny be mekarka denied mekarka. In other words, why did he say metalfan afilu avodim? Because you might say the Hamas of Avodim can walk around. The wallet, your wallet, or your pen, or whatever you have, your chair doesn't walk around by itself. In other words, the reason he says afilu the Hamas of Avodim, you might say, okay, everything in the city, like go into the house, like you say, sell the house as is, the city as is, everything that's in it, even movables, even things that you could move. But maybe things that move by themselves, like animals and slaves, maybe that would not be included. That's why he says, even things could move, they could walk away. While you're selling it, maybe these animals and the slaves will walk away. Even that's included too. So you see that there's a difference. Why do you say afilu? To tell you that there's metalfan which moves by itself, like animals, livestock, anything alive, versus wallets, chairs, tables, things that don't move. They're movable, but they don't move by themselves. So if that's the case, you could really say that even when it comes to the question, what does a person mean to include? It could be it's like karka, but it says karka which is movable versus karka which is not movable. And an eved could be like karka, and when he sells things, but there's a difference between karka which is non-movable and avodim which are movable. So you can't prove from over here when a person sells his karka, does he mean to include avodim, kananim, or not? The chora you see over here, maybe it's not considered karka. No, could be it is karka. But the Mishnah is telling you there's a difference between karka which is movable and karka which is not movable. So you can't determine anything from this Mishnah. But you could say that it clearly, if he says everything included in it, the Mishnah is telling you even movables which move by themselves, like animals and avodim, are also included. Shmuel said, you sell the city, not only is the city included, the buildings and everything in the city, the fields, but even the santer. So what is santer? My santer. Here in Babel, they said bar machonisa. What is bar machonisa? So here Rashbam tells us, Rashbam says it's a slave, hamamuna lahagi lachli. I would call this a town surveyor. He's the one who tells you where each plot of land, this belongs to Yankel, this belongs to Shmerel, this belongs to Beryl. He knows exactly where everything is. That's a town surveyor. The Rashbam also brings down 7-8 lines from the bottom of the page. Ben Achanal Pir Santer is the Shomer Ir, the city guard. In either way, it's some city official. It's a person. According to this interpretation in Babel, meaning it's a man, a person who has city responsibilities. Either he's the town surveyor, the town clerk, the town guard, whatever. The Shomer, the town guard. Shimon ben Thomas disagrees. Omer Bagi means fields. Simply means fields, meaning the Tanakama apparently didn't include fields. He said, okay, you sell the city, you sell houses, pits, bathhouses, things which are clearly describable. But then he says, and the Mishnah Tanakama said Beis HaShlachin. That's what we're going to deal with right now. Is the fields. What's between Beis HaShlachin and Santer? If Rav Shimon adding on, and you say that Santer means fields, how is that different than Beis HaShlachin? That's what the Gemara is going to deal with right now. So we have machlokas. What is Santer? Is it a person, a town official, let's call him, or is it fields? If he says you're selling what? A person, so koshken bagi. If the town clerk, I'm selling the city, along with the city, you get the town clerk. In other words, he's a slave, which is you're owned. He's owned by the city, owned by the person who owns the city, and he's selling that person. Certainly fields are included, because even a human being is included. The one who says fields, but a person is not sold. You can't sell that person. He doesn't, even though he might be your slave, but he doesn't go along with the city. Okay, so we have two different opinions. Now we're going to try to prove. Tanan, Beis Abadim, the Beis HaShlachin. The Tanakama said, when you sell the city, you include the olive presses and the fields. So for my shlachin, we assume that shlachin is bag. It's the same thing. So the pasuk says It says he sends water on the face of the outlying areas. So if you say what? That it's a person. Okay, I understand this. Very good. So he said Tanakama said what? Tanakama said Sholech, that when he said Beis HaShlachim, that's fields sold, and the person's not sold. Even a person, the town clerk, the town official is also sold. In other words, the Tanakama said, look again at the Mishnah. Tanakama said in the third line of the Mishnah, when you sell a city, it includes the Beis HaShlachim, the fields. If Beis HaShlachim means fields, so it's fields. Okay, so what is Rav Shmuel adding on when he says you also sell the santer? If it's also fields, what's he saying differently than the Tanakama? Okay, santer means the town official. Okay, that I can understand. So Bishlam says what? That it's a town official. So Tanakama says fields are sold, town officials not sold. Shmuel comes along to say no, the town officials also sold. Not misavin. Elamando Rabagi. But if you say what? That santer means fields, so that's the same as the Tanakama. Tanakama Nami Ochikomer. Tanakama also said fields. So what's Shmuel adding on? The Tanakama said Beis HaShlachim. Shlachim is fields, and santer is fields. What's from Shmuel differing than the Tanakama? No. Tanakama also said the same thing. That's the kasha. Said no. Misa was my shlachim bagi. Who says that shlachim means fields? No. My shlachim ginunaisa. You know what shlachim means? It means gardens. Shenemar, it says shlachayach. Your fields, pardes remonim. Your fields are like an orchard of pomegranates. In other words, so Beis HaShlachim can also refer to an orchard that has pomegranates. It doesn't necessarily mean fields. Okay, so what is he saying? The Tanakama is saying orchards which are closer to the city, that's included. If I sell the city, orchards are included, not fields. Tanakama is saying fields are not sold. Shmuel says no, that fields are also sold. So you can understand it that way. That's one way to learn. That some say the other way the kasha you're asking is this. Shlachim we thought are gardens, like we just said this pasuk of Shlachayach Pardes Rimonim. So when the Tanakama said gardens are sold with the city when you sell the city, gardens are sold but not fields. Fields are further out. So if you say that what the one who says, meaning what's the name? Shimon Dan Talmud, who said that santer means fields. Okay, Amar Tanakama Ganai. So the Tanakama said when you sell the city, the close by gardens are included in the Davin Baglams are not fields. Shmuel says no, even fields also are sold. Ella, and I'm at base now. Ella Lamanda Amar Bachunaisa. But if you say that santer means the town official, so Amar Tanakama said Tanakama says gardens are sold, but not fields. So what's Rav Shmuel saying? Rav Shmuel says what? Even the town official sold. What about the fields? If he says the town official, if he says town official, it sounds like he says, okay, you say gardens and fields, and I'm adding on the town official. Why would you have a town official? Tanakama says gardens, not fields. So Rav Shmuel say only the town official. You should say the fields and the town official. So it doesn't make so much sense to say that the santer is the town official. No, Misa is my shlachim. Who says that shlachim means the garden? Lo, my shlachan, bagi, taka means field. The siv shlech maim up, and it's the first way we saw. So it depends. Shlachan can mean fields, and it can mean gardens. And either way, you could. So each one can interpret his own way. And we still have this discussion: is santer a town official or is it fields? But the person lo mistafen. That the Tanakama says what that shlachan are fields, but the town official not sold. Even the town official is sold. Even the town official is sold, like the first opinion of the interpretation of the word santer. So two ways to learn what is the santer. If you learn that santer is the town official, so the Tanakama said fields are sold, not town official. You'll say town officials also sold. If you learn that santer is the fields, then the Tanakama said orchards are sold, not fields. And Shmuel says no, even fields also. Tashma, let's try to prove this question. Rav Yehuda says, we don't have this in the Mishnah, this is the Brisa. Yehuda says santer ain't a macher. Santer is not sold. Now, what is the santer? Is the santer the fields or is it the town official? So on kumas macher, but the town scribe is sold. Interesting. I saw that the Chidah brings down from Rishonim. What is the word? What is kumus? What is kumus? Kumus is a fight. Kumus is a pen, a quill or a pen. So what's on kumus? So he says whenever you find the letters Aleph Nun in front of a word, he says you find it by An Shlomo. It means it's like an abbreviation like, here, oh, I just thought of this now. Mr. How do you abbreviate Mr. in English? How do you abbreviate Mr.? M-R, period, right? You take the first letter of the word Mr. and you take the last letter, right? That's how we do it, Mr., right? It's the same thing here. Maybe they got it from our Gemara, meaning An means Adon, Adon Shlomo, Adon Kumus, the master of the pen, of the quill, Adon Kumus. So An Kumus means Adon of the Kumus. That's what it is. That's where they got Mr. from. Yeah, you see, you can go through 100 years of college and they'll never teach you how did Mr. become M-R, period, right? You got to hear from the Gemara, right? Anyway, An Kumus Machar. So he said, Rav Yehuda says, listen, the santer is not sold with the city, but the scribe, the townsman, he is scribe to write everything down, he is sold. My love, since the An Kumus is a person, the scribe, santer is also a person. So this proves like the opinion, right? Like the first opinion of the Gemara, the Tanakam of the Brisa, that the santer is a person. If the An Kumus is a person, maybe the santer is also a person. Who says the two are related? It could be that An Kumus is a person, but it could very be that the santer is fields. It's not a person. You can't prove from there. So the Gemara says, can you really say that the santer is fields? Rashbam says that santer is fields. It's not a person. It must be a person. Why? Oktani Sefer, the Sefer of that Brisa says, Rav Yehuda said that the santer is not sold. The An Kumus, the scribe, is sold. Okay, but can you say that the santer really refers to fields and not to a person? It says Sefer says but the city is sold, but not its remnants, whatever's left from the city. Not the suburbs. Meaning, what do we mean by remnants? So Rashbam says, it just says like whatever's left of the city. There's some parts that were destroyed and left over. Not its suburbs, not the forests which are set next to the city. Those are not included. Not animal preserves, animal enclosures, whether it be animals or birds or fish. Obviously, there would be a water preserve for the fish. Those are included. My shah, right? What do we mean by these remnants? Say city remnants. What is a remnant of a city? It says Bisley, not Bisley. 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 What's that? So my Bisley. What does that help us? Rababa Piski Bagi. Little stretches of fields that are somewhat removed from the field. Does he have a field? And then it's separated by some rocky areas. And then there's a little strip there. That's not included. Fields are included, but not these strips. So Piski Bagi, he says that's not so sure. What are these remnants? It's these Piski Bagi, it's the little strips of land that are separated from the fields. He says, okay, that's not included. Okay, so that's not included. Piski Bagi, that's not included with the sale of the city. Habagi Asman, but the fields themselves, they are sold. So how can you see over here? How can you say over here? Rav Yehuda says a santer is not sold. And you're saying that santer doesn't mean the person, it means the fields. Here clearly you see in the Sefer that he says the fields are sold because the strips that are separated from fields are not sold, but the fields are sold. So you know what? That's not a problem. I'll turn around what Rav Yehuda said. When we asked the kasha before trying to prove that santer is a person because the An Kumus is a person, turn around, Rav Yehuda says santer is sold. The santer is the field. An Kumus, the town scribe, is not sold. So they can switch around that way. Okay, so according to this, Rav Yehuda says that the santer is sold, right? The santer. So what is the santer? We're saying it means fields. Okay, but whatever it is, Rav Yehuda is going like Rav Shimon Gamliel, who says in the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah, santer is sold with the city. It says, can you really say Rav Yehuda goes Rav Shimon Gamliel sphere or Rav Yehuda Rabbanan sphere? We see clearly that Rav Yehuda holds like Rabbanan that the fields are not sold. The Tony Sefer says it's Avaloshir, but not these remnants, right? But not these strips, not the suburbs. Shmuel says Machar Sa'ir, you sell the city, you sell the suburbs. The Tanya Mochar Sa'ir, lo Machar, when it said Tanakam says you don't include the suburbs. Shmuel Machar Sa'ir, Machar B'noseh, right? So you see, you do sell. So how can you say that he holds like Shmuel? He clearly holds like the Tanakama here, who says that the remnants are not sold. The Tanya says Shmuel says if you sell a city, you sell the suburbs. So he argues with the Tanakama. as far as what's included. So it's kashmat. Rav Yehuda doesn't go like Shimon Gamliel. The answer is Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda holds like Shimon Gamliel in one sense that the santer is sold, whatever the santer is, it's sold like Shimon Gamliel. But he disagrees with him as far as the suburbs are concerned. Because here he says, Rav Yehuda says that the suburbs are not sold. Shimon Gamliel says it is sold. Okay, he doesn't agree with Shimon Gamliel as far as suburbs, but he agrees with him as far as santer, whatever santer is. Below Bibrin, he said, okay, the Brisa said, Rav Yehuda said that you sell a city, you sell, let's call it the fields or the town official. You sell the way we came out April is that the Ankumas is not sold, the person is not sold. Okay. The question is, what do you need to include? But you don't include the animal enclosures, the animal preserves. Or a minute. If there are suburbs and a makarsim, that's not sold. Like that's what the Tanakhama said, like Shimon Gamliel and the Brisa, right? Shimon Gamliel says, we don't hold that way. Let's say the city was split. Think of New York City. Part of it's is an island, right? Part of it's Manhattan, right? Many cities like it. They have a little island in the middle, and there's water around it. It's all part of the city, right? I assume the Hudson River is part of the city. So let's say part of the city is in the water, in the sea, parts on dry land. So that's included because it's still called the city. It's called New York City. Suburbs are not included. But if the city itself had that name, it was called part is on water, part is on dry land, it's all included. Here he says that the animal enclosures are included. So how can you say that the animal enclosures are not included? This is where its characteristics are towards the inside, meaning it's open towards the city. If it's open, these enclosures are open towards the city, then include with the city. If they're open towards the outside of the city, away from the city, they're not included. I have a tiny below but it says forests which are open there are not included. As we said in the Brisa before, that the Chorshen HaMuktzin, these are not included, even though they're set aside for it. Apparently, they're facing it. It's the aim of the Muktzin Amena. No, they're set apart from it. In other words, they're open towards the outside, away from the city. Then it's not included. So all these things are complicated. Also, the question: what does the man mean to include when he said it's stam? What about selling a field? It says the Mishnah, you sell a field. It includes this rocks, even though the rocks are not deeply embedded in the field, the rocks on the field. So he says, if the field needs them, then they're included. Now, how do you determine if the field needs the rocks? So we're going to see. The Gemara will explain what that means. If the field needs the rocks, then they're included. And also the reeds in the vineyard, which are also necessary for the vineyard. What are reeds used for in a vineyard? To hold up the vines, right? They take the reeds, they cut them off, and they process them, and they stick them in the ground, and they hold them up. If there is produce which is still attached to the ground, and you sold the field, and it's still attached to the ground, it's sold too. Isn't that obvious? The Gemara will say, why is it not so obvious? It's speaking about where it's ready to be harvested. Even though it's ready to be harvested, if it's still attached to the ground, it's included. That's chitzas hakonim. Means a clump of, there's a clump of reeds, base rova, less than a base rova. Base rova is a square area or a square or rectangular area that can produce, that in which you can plant less than a quarter of a rova, means less than a quarter of a kav of seed. Okay, how much is that? So it's an area, we're going to see, a rova is think of it this way. We explained many times that the base of English was considered base society, right? The Azara was 100 by 50, that's 2 saw squared. 50 by 50 is 1 saw squared. That's 50 amas by 50 amas. 50 by 50 is how many amas? A square of 50 by 50 is 2,500. Okay? Now, that's a base saw. 2,500. How many kav are in a saw? 6 kav in a saw. How many quarters of a kav are in a kav? Quarters. How many quarters of a kav are in a kav? How many quarters in a dollar? 4, right? How many quarters of a kav in a kav? 4. So you have 4 quarters of a kav in a kav, 6 kavs in a saw. So it's 4 times 6, 24 quarter kavs in a base saw. So 24 of them in a base saw. Base saw, we said, is 2,500 square amas. So how much is 1/24th of that? It's about 104. It's about 10.2 times 10.2. So if you have an area of about 10 square amas, about 104, 10 square, about 104 square amas, that if it's no bigger than that, then it's included with the field. It's not considered like a separate area. So again, he says, if you have a clump of kanim, no, you're selling the field, but if you have a clump of reeds, which that area that it consumes is less than, let's say, 100 square amas, that's also included with the field. That's a shemira she'enasi with the shemira is a place where, it's also the name of a insurance company here in Israel, right? But shemira is a guard's hut. A guard has a hut out in the field to keep it, to watch it, to protect it from animals and robbers and things like that. If it's not fixed into the ground, that means that it's not made with cement, it's not cemented down, then it's like part of the field because it's not considered a separate structure. We'll see if it's cemented with, according to the gears that the Pashut and the gears that we have, some have it reversed, but gears we have is if it's cemented with cemented down, then it's like a separate structure. It's not included with the field. So here we're talking about what's included with the field, the rocks that it needs, the reeds that are necessary in the vineyard, and the produce which is attached to the ground, and a clump of reeds, which is a small amount, less than you can plant. That you can't plant a 100 square amas of that, and the hut which is not cemented down. That's a charab she'en mokav. Let's say you have a carob tree, which is a young carob tree which has not yet been grafted to make it stronger. That's also included with the field. It's not considered a separate structure. We'll see if it's an aged carob tree that's already grafted, etc. Then these are like separate structures, not included with the field. The same thing with a hut which is cemented down, or a clump of reeds which is larger than a quarter of a kav that you could plant a quarter of a kav of seed there. That's considered like a separate area. That's basulas shikmor, or a young, like a virgin sycamore tree. It hasn't been cut off its branches. It's a very young. That's also considered part of the field. Aval, now so the reverse of all of that. Lo macher, but it's not included in the field. Again, unless you specify. Lo macher, lo asabanim she'en sacher. Not, you don't include the rocks that it doesn't need. Lo asakanim shebakarim she'en sacher, or the reeds in the vineyard that are necessary for it. Lo asatfua she'tlushim mekarka. Not produce which has been already detached from the ground. Isn't that obvious? If I sell a field, why would you think that you get the produce which is attached from the ground? Because maybe you still need to dry it there or whatever. But I could say, no, it's not attached anymore. However, if I sold the field and I said, everything that's included there, everything is sold with one exception, with a couple exceptions. Even though I said everything is included, everything above is included except for these. Either way, you didn't sell a clump of reeds which has an area, let's say, of 100 square amas. That's considered a separate field. Below us, nor the guard's hut, which is cemented down, because then it's like a separate structure. Below us, a charav amurka, and not the grafted carob tree. Below us, and not the aged sycamore tree, which has already had its branches cut off. So there's 4 exceptions over here. He says everything is included with 4 exceptions. It's not much more that is included except the stones and the reeds that are not necessary for it, right, and things like that. So otherwise, it's really these are except these. Even if he said everything in it, that means the stones and the reeds, but not these other things which we've shown as acceptance. Says the Gemara, Daf Samach Tes Amud Aleph. My avonim. Bear in mind that the next 4 days are shorter days, right? Because Tuesday and Wednesday was Chodesh. My avonim she'en sach. What do we mean that stones that are necessary for the field? You say when you sell a field, included in the field are the stones necessary for the field. What do we mean by that? Hacha here in Baba Targimo Avnei Dachba. Weight stones. Weight stones. WEIGHT. Weight stones. What do we mean by that? Stones that are used to hold down when they cut down the crops and they haven't bundled it up yet. So they don't want it flying around. A strong wind can come and blow it away. So they put rocks on the on top of the produce, which is going to cut down. Tarp. Well, today you have a tarp. If you have a tarp, they didn't have a tarp. I don't know if they had tarp in those days, but they had big rocks they used for that too. They had tarp. They could have used that too. Good. That's what he means by avodim she'en sach. We're talking about rocks over here. Ulamar avodim asturas together. He says no. The rocks we're talking about are rocks which are set up and ordered as a fence. Sometimes you have your fence around the field is a rock, is made out of rocks. I have a ton of Chia, Avanam Saburos together. He says that it's rocks which are piled up. Apparently, they're not ready yet. They're not actually, they don't actually form the fence yet. They're just piled up that you will use for the gut there. So Stani Stores changed it. Change it. It doesn't mean if they're just piled up and they're not used as a fence yet, that's not included. If they're already set up and ordered in order as a fence. So it either means rocks which are used to weigh down the produce that it shouldn't blow away, or it means rocks that are used as a fence. Yeah, so we explain that's like Amar Mar. Now, here we said what it means weight stones that are used to weigh it down. Later on, Rashbam says that in Dapim Ches, about a week and a half, we're going to say Rav Meir, whenever we have a discussion of what's included, Rav Meir always includes more than the Chachamim. Because if you sell a kerem, you sell all the accessories of the kerem. And he says over there, even things that are not sold, the Rabbanan say these things are not included. Rav Meir always includes more. So according to Rav Meir, how does he understand these weight stones? Even these stones that are set up and prepared to use as weight stones, even though they're not actually set in the field yet. You might just have a pile of stones on the side. You haven't harvested it yet. You haven't cut down the produce. When you cut it down, then you'll put the stones on. According to Meir, who includes more, he includes even stones which aren't used right now in weighting it down. They're just ready to be used for that. That's good enough. Rabbanan says the stones are included if they're actually being used for that. According to Ula, who said that the stones we're talking about are stones which are set up as a fence. So Rav Meir says even if they're just prepared to use for that, even though you haven't set them up in order, Rabbanan includes less. They say only if it's actually being used as a fence already. Okay, again, included in the field are stones that are necessary for the field, according to either interpretation here. According to, and then we said the kanim, the reeds in a vineyard, which are necessary for their usage in the karim. Now, what are we speaking on? What do you use reeds for in a karim, in a vineyard? Reeds which are split at the top. They would take a reed, hard, cut it down, it's hardened, cut it at the top. I think of a lulav, something like that. You cut it at the top, you split it at the top, and then you use it, you stick it on the ground, and it supports the vines so they don't sit on the ground. The vines need support. Otherwise, they sit on the ground and the vermin eat it up. So, the Rav Meir, according to Rav Meir, who says he includes more, the mashafyan, if you smooth it or you split it, you smoothed it out, or you planed it, you treated it, even though you didn't actually use it yet. In other words, the reeds might have been split and smoothed out, planed, make it nice and smooth, even though you haven't yet set them up in the vineyard. The Rabbanan, who include less, they say only if it's already been set up and it's in use, holding up the vines. And what else is included when you sell the field? Not only the stones that are necessary, not only the reeds, and the produce which is attached to the ground. And what's the chiddush here? Even though it's ready to be harvested, but if it's still attached to the ground, it's included in the sale, unless you specify it otherwise. And if you have a clump of reeds which are less than, let's say, 10 square amas, 100 square amas, which is 10 by 10, if it's less than that, that's included with the field. Even though these reeds form a thick clump or a thick bunch, and they're thick and strong, but if it's such a small amount, that's considered batel to the ground, to the field. That's a shemir she'ein asuya b'tit. And if you have a guard's hut, which is not attached with cement, even though it's not fixed into the ground, it's considered part of the field. That's a charb she'ein, it's portable. That's charb she'ein morka. And the carob tree, which has not been grafted to give it strength, that's psilas shikma and the young sycamore tree, even though they're strong and they're firm, but they're still young and they're not considered separate items, and therefore they're included with the field. Again, it's like sort of necessary for the field. They don't stand as independent structures. Again, but what on the opposite? You don't sell you don't sell the stones which are not necessary for the field. According to Meir, what does that mean? Because Rav Meir said before that even if they're just prepared, even though they're not in usage, that is sold. But if he says if it's not necessary, it means that they haven't been prepared, then it's not included. According to Rabbanan, even if they're prepared, if they're not in use, they're not included. So here he says, even if they're prepared, but they're not set in the field, they're not included. This is all an interpretation that the stones are used as weight stones. Ula, again, according to Ula, it says if the stones, we're talking about stones that are set up as a fence, Rav Meir Shapiro. Again, Rav Meir means that they're not even prepared at all. And therefore, because if they're prepared, they're included. Rabbanan hold that even if they're prepared, they have to be set up. If they're not set up, they're not included. Nor the reeds in the vineyard, which are not necessary for the vineyard. According to Rav Meir, they haven't been smoothed out. Because according to Rav Meir, if they're smoothed out, even if they're not in use yet, they're included. So when he said if they're not included, they're not necessary because they have been smoothed out. Rabbanan, even if they've been smoothed out, but if they're not set up, it's not included. Nor is the produce which is detached from the ground included. It's not included. Even though it still needs land. In other words, isn't it obvious? If I sell a field, the stuff that I cut down already, that I harvested, is not included. Isn't it obvious? No. Even though it's necessary, meaning when they cut down the crops, many times they're moist and wet, right, from the dew, etc., and then they want to leave it out in the ground, under the sun to dry out or to further process. So even though it still needs the land for that, it's good for it to sit on the field, even though it's necessary for it, but it's not included if it's been detached. Nor any clump of reeds, which is at least 10.2 by 10.2, meaning it's an area of 104 square amos. So that's an independent area. I sold this field, but this clump of reeds, which constitutes a big area like that, that's separate. Even though it's small, the reeds might be small, but if it's a clump that has that square footage, that's not included because it's considered a separate area. Not only is a clump of reeds considered separate and not included with the field, even a small row of spices is also if it's called something by itself. In other words, if it's considered significant on its own, not only if it's a square of 104 amos of reeds, even if it's something significant like a row of spices and it's got a name to it, they call that skab shemli. It's not sold. Of course, not sold with the field because that's considered independent. Amra Papa, who the correlate varda appliance. I called the roses of Jimmy. Jimmy's roses. It's got a name to it. It's significant that it's not sold with the field. Nor is the guard's hut, which is cemented down, that's not included when you sell the field. Even though it's attached to the ground, but because it's set down with cement, it's considered significant on its own. When you sell the field, the guard's hut is not included. All right, we'll pick it up from this last two dots tomorrow. Boy, Rebbe Lezer, near about 7-8 lines from the bottom of the page where we're holding now. We'll pick that up tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, beautiful. Thank you.
Then what? Yeah. Oh, so no, we're not finished. That's a good question Michael's asking. What about Ayin Ra, Ayin Yafa? All these things are standard. There's no machlokas about that. We passed them before like Rabbi Kiva, that Ayin Yafa. When you sell, even though you're generous. I sell you the house and the chatzer, and I'm keeping for myself the well, but I have to buy back the pathway, right? We passed Rabbi Kiva there. We're going to come back to Rabbi Kiva in the next Mishnah on Tuesday. Where we're going to come back and say certain things that when you sell the boar and the shovach and stuff like that, you have to buy it back. So there we're talking about this nafkamina with ayin ra and yafa. On these items, apparently there is no, right? Because these are tzorach. We're not talking about saving for myself an area to get there. We're not talking about that. If there would be necessary, if I keep for myself something, like you say, this is not included, right? Especially if you have some. So what about the path leading up there? Presumably the same machlokas or keeping rabbanan. Yourself ayin ra and yafa. In other words, if I have to get to this independent area, whether that's a hut or it's a area of reeds, which is significant, and I kept that for myself because it's not included, the charis have the same. It's a good question. Say machlokas for keeping rabbanan ayin ra ayin yafa. It's not mentioned in this mission. It's mentioned in the later mission. So apparently it's all included. Yeah.